Hey guys, so we are potentially experiencing one of the worst recession in modern era. When should you actually start to buy stocks in the recession? What is the ideal time to actually pick a bottom? Without going into technical analysis, let me show you 3 ways I use to potentially time an entry into the market. So, the world seems to be headed into one of the greatest recessions since the Great Depression, with the US unemployment expected to skyrocket over the coming weeks, with some media actually forecasting well over 20% unemployment rates. And as we all would have already known by now, the upcoming recession is actually the direct result of the COVID-19 virus spreading like wildfire and devastating economies all around the world. If you're still unaware of what is actually happening to the world, it's either you have been staying in a cave for the past 2 months, or you probably would have already attained nirvana. So, jokes aside, the US market collapsed more than 30% 2 weeks ago, before witnessing what some people might term as a dead cat bounce. Well, there are some who believe we have already seen the lull in the market and it's time to start getting aggressive in the market. Before you actually start knocking on the doors of the banks and asking them to lend you money to put into the stock market, let me provide you with some historical data points. So I actually compiled the data for the past 80 to 90 years recession since the Great Depression. There were actually 13 of them. On average, the stock market would have peaked 6 months before the start of the recession. In recent recessions, that figure declined to just 3 months. So if the peak of the market was on 19 February 2020, we should actually expect the recession to begin sometime in mid-May 2020. Well, some folks believe that we are already in a recession back in March 2020. So, great, we know that a recession has started or is imminent. But what we want to know is, has the stock market already reached its bottom? Is it actually time to buy? Hold your horses, guys. Based on historical statistics, the stock market will not trough until about 5 months before the recession ends. Okay. But by the time we actually know that the recession ends, it will actually be too late to enter into the market. Well, it's actually never too late to start investing, but if the goal is to time a better entry into the market, we will need a better metric. So the first method I use to actually time an entry is by looking at the number of days the stock market trough after each recession. We know that the recession has started in March 2020 or about to start in the coming 1 to 2 months. So assuming that it has already begun, history has shown that it will take the stock market roughly 10 months since the start of the recession to trough. So if it actually began in March 2020, we might potentially see a bottom sometime in January 2021. The last 2 recessions were much longer, with the stock market actually bottoming more than a year after the recession began. But let's just stay hopeful, that all the helicopter money will turn the economy around much faster this time around. The second method I use to look at the maximum peak to trough of the stock market. On average, there will be a 33% drawdown before the market troughs. For more severe recessions in the past 8 to 9 decades, that averages to a 50% drawdown. So we can actually probably start purchasing when stocks are 50% cheaper from its February peak. Let me give you another reference point. The S&P 500 earnings were 163 in 2019. Bank of America forecasts that figure to decline by 29% to $115 per share in 2020. Goldman forecasts that figure to decline by 33% to $110 per share in 2020. So some pretty hefty cuts on the plate. Just keep that in mind first. So when the S&P 500 was at its peak of at close to 3,400 not too long ago, that implies a peak price to 2019 earnings multiple of 21 times. So let's use the average 2020 EPS forecast of 112.5 between BOA and Goldman. At 21 times multiples, that implies a fair value target of 2362. So still a roughly about a 5% discount from current levels of about 2,400 plus, But can we actually imagine using a 21 times multiple in today's context? Using a peak earnings multiple in one of the worst recessions since the Great Depressions doesn't seem to be the best way to value a stock market. I'm not sure about you, but that sounds highly optimistic to me. So what might actually be a good earnings multiple to use? The good folks over at Moon Capital Management actually compiled a summary of the PER multiple contractions in previous recessions with an average PER multiple contraction of 35%. So a 35% contraction from a peak 21 times PER will translate to a PER multiple of 13.7 times. At 13.7 times, the fair value of the S&P 500 based on 2020 earnings will be around 1576, So that implies a peak to trough decline of 53%, Sounds about right to me, So that is my second method of timing the market to be more aggressive in the purchase at the 50% peak drawdown level. The third method is actually to buy into the market when the National Bureau of Economic Research, or NBER for short, officialized the start of a recession. Sounds a bit counterintuitive, but the thing is, the NBER takes a long time to compile the data to justify that a recession has really taken place. And by the time they confirm that the recession has begun, that recession is almost over. Take for example, in the last Great Recession, which started in December 2007, the NBER took one whole year to determine that the recession has indeed started in December 2007 and only officialized in December 2008. The stock market troughed 3 months later in March 2009. Before that, in the 1981 to 1982 recession, which started in July 1981, the NBER officially declared the start in January 1982. The stock market subsequently troughed in July 1982. It would make sense to actually buy into this market more aggressively when the NBER officialized the recession. So there you go. These are my 3 ways of timing a market entry based on past recession data. Nothing magical over here, and as you can see, I don't actually have a crystal ball in front of me. So definitely I'm not a psychic. If you like the content, do hit the button and subscribe to my channel. I would like to share more stock market ideas so you can benefit from the current recession. As painful as this recession might be, for many, we should try to actually make lemonades out of lemons. With that, this is Royston signing out. Till the next video, guys.